One part of the superyacht world that's often glossed over is the Antipodes. While not traditionally a yachting hotspot, like say the south of France, Australia in particular has nonetheless been quietly crafting stunning superyachts for decades now. Perhaps that's not entirely a surprise. Aussie stereotypes being what they are, this is a nation of people who love the water. So naturally, you'll find them at sea. One such beautiful example of Aussie craftsmanship is Flying Manta, built by the Queensland-based NQEA. She's currently for sale with my colleague Peter Redford and Eugenio.cannarsa.
The boat name is Flying Manta. It was built in Australia, in Queensland, North Queensland. It was built by a company called North Queensland Engineering for an Australian, wealthy Australian, who knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted a vessel that will take him fishing to the remote parts of Australia, up in Northern Territory, then across to Western Australia and across into Papua New Guinea, the South Pacific. He was a mad fisherman. He was so focused on what he wanted. When he ordered this boat, when he commissioned this build, he actually ordered a spare engine, spare propellers, spare shafts, which are in a container in storage, amongst other things. I don't know what's in the container, but there's a selection of stuff in this container that's been sitting there as spares, which we've never used. But it isn't a typical production boat. It isn't, there's another one of those, there's another one of those, that's another one of the 50, they've made 18 of those or something. It's a vessel that's unique and it's purpose built. So if you're looking for an Explorer yacht that has the capability of going anywhere, or even if you're looking for an Explorer yacht that wants to carry big tenders on board for fishing, bearing in mind this boat has got 4 cranes. And those cranes are 2.5 ton capacity or 2 ton capacity. So you could lift tenders on board. I mean, I know gentlemen that like to go surfing and they have a super yacht, they put their boat on, which they lift the small boat into the water to take them to a spot where the waves are, and they obviously have the larger boat as a mothership. So it isn't necessarily just a heli deck or a boat that will take a helicopter. You can put 4 tenders on this boat, or surfing tenders or fishing tenders, or 4 large fishing boats, whatever it is that you want. So it's got a capability and it's quite versatile in what it's able to do, be it as an Explorer. And I think as an Explorer, it's probably, in my mind, one of the best Explorers out there.
I have to admit I was tremendously excited at the thought of filming a yacht with a helicopter landing pad on it. I had no idea there were so many extra amenities on board too.
If you asked me a question to say, what doesn't it have? I'd have to say, I don't know what it doesn't have. I can't say it needs this. It's actually got everything. And it's Lloyd's class certified, which is now just a month old, its last certification. Unlike typical yachts, I think this one's been practically designed. I say that because the original owner had 18 grandkids, so he wanted a family boat, one that would accommodate that sort of a lot of activity on board. So when you look at the layout here, you step out onto that back platform where you're landing, which for an owner who wants to go fishing as the original owner did, now the current owner, he's installed those transformer steps so he can go scuba diving. So he has the tanks down there. He's got this whole wet area down there that he can come out of the water, or as the original owner did, he'd have the kids running out of the water. They'd have this containment area where they can be wet. The clothing didn't matter. They can come further in, they can shower down below and then take off their wetsuits as the current owners do. and the previous owner would, do the fishing down there. He'd have the barbecue down there, which is still there. He's got fish tanks down there to keep the bait alive or to keep the lobsters alive, whatever it is that he wanted to do. So it's quite magnificent in the way. That's just the entry part of the boat, let alone once you get up into up the stairs. As you come up the stairs, you've got an area there where tenders can be kept. Now, if the tenders are off that area, which they'll deploy to the side, you've got a large area which is possibly around 70 square metres or 80 square metres of just deck space there. But coming further forward, you have an atrium area which is enclosed. The outer area can be enclosed also, but this atrium area I'm speaking about now is permanently enclosed, which is still outside with clears, and it's air conditioned. So in that area that's air conditioned, you have a wet bar, coffee, fridge, freezer, ice machine. You have all the comfort you need for a casual afternoon sitting around a large table and to eat, have lunch, dinner, whatever it is that you wanted. And you're still only getting to the back door of the boat. You haven't actually entered the saloon. As you enter the saloon, you've got, again, unlike a lot of super yachts that are larger, 50 metre, even this size is 42 metres, you've got a very comfortable area where it's a conversational area, I like to think about it, because it's not just a lounge and a coffee table. It's the way the current owner has set it up. He's made it more interactive with whoever it is you're on board with. So it's a very conversational area, it's a very friendly area, and then of course forward of that you have the dining table. Forward from the saloon area and the dining area, you'll go on the starboard side forward, where you've got a starboard side door. You have the day head, of course. Just a point on that day head, the day head operates on a separate system to the rest of the sanitary system. So if the sanitary system failed, you've still got an independent system that operates. I don't want to focus on the sanitary system, but I thought it was an important point. That's what the original owner had designed. So in those remote locations, had the system failed. So he wanted a backup system, so to speak. So going forward on the starboard side, you enter into the master cabin. This boat has what I would call two master cabins. You have the top master and the lower master cabin. I sometimes refer to it as a New York apartment, so to speak, because you can isolate those two cabins from the other four guest cabins who have got those other four guest cabins have their own staircase. So the forward two master cabins you can close off so that if you have guests on board, you can get up in the morning. If you're grumpy, you don't have to see them the other guests straight away in the morning. You can have your own coffee. He's got his own coffee area there, little wet bar to make coffee and so on. So is the one downstairs. So you can have your little private couple of hours, whatever, before you have to actually leave your domain and go and meet your guests, which I think is quite unique for this size vessel, and quite unique in its design that way. So from the top master, you have a private staircase that goes to the lower master, and again, that's perfectly fitted as a double bed down there, or in fact, the current owner decided to make it so you could separate it into two single beds. If the new owner wanted to combine the lower level, the hallway availability to do that is still there. It's easy just to remove one panel and you'll have a walk through to the other four guest cabins. So coming back up from the lower cabin, the lower master cabin, you come back to the other four guest cabins, which on the port side, they're running as two double beds but are split. So the port side you can have two singles, and the starboard side is double. When you come back up their staircase, you have the galley there. And the galley, according to the chef, which I totally agree with, is sensational. That's the only word I could use for it. It's got every conceivable appliance. It has 2 stoves, hot plates. It has dishwasher, microwave, heating elements to keep the food warm. It's got a snap freezer. It's got an ice cream machine. I can't go through all the appliances because I just don't know them all. But according to her, it's got every conceivable appliance that you could possibly have in a commercial kitchen. In fact, it's probably got more appliances than some commercial kitchens have, or galleys have. You can come out of there and then you go up the staircase to the bridge deck, where there's a day head up there on the bridge level. There's also 2 cabins up there. One double bed cabin is for the captain, and on the port side you have 2 bunks, another cabin but with 2 bunks for the engineer and pilot. Pilot being the helicopter pilot. The current owner flies his own helicopter, but sometimes he has a pilot, or a pilot for navigation can be up there had you been in waters that required a pilot. There's another dining area upstairs just outside of this, at the back before the helicopter area, which will take a dining for 10. So you've got that shade clothed as well, and beyond that you'd have the helicopter sitting there. Where I'm currently sitting, we're in what I would call if you wish, a cigar area. He doesn't smoke, but it's like a men's club area where you've got some chairs that revolve around. There's a whiskey bar behind, which with all the fine whiskies that you could possibly imagine. And then, of course, as I said, further on, you've got the helm. The helm is all Lloyd certified, commercial, for the helicopter landing, absolutely, and it's just Lloyd's class. Forward, out on the foredeck, you've got large sun beds that, with shade cloth, and I would suggest that comfortably on those sun beds, you'd probably be able to sit 30, 40 people. The area is immense inside. He imported those, the current owner imported those from the US because he needed to make that area very loungy, very comfortable to sit up there. If you go further down, there's actually a door that's a large door, but it's actually the entrance or escape hatch for the main master cabin. If you go into one of the wardrobes downstairs, there's a passageway there, which is the escape, which will take you to the foredeck. It's quite nice for the current owner to take the coffee. He goes to the foredeck, has his coffee up there, as I said, where he doesn't have to mix immediately with all the other guests. Come back out onto the heli deck, and then we come back up again with another staircase to the top level, where there's a second station for another helm station. So you can drive from up there. That is in itself a bit unique to boats of this size, because normally they only have one helm. Now the reason this has 2 helms is it was designed that way that the first owner wanted to go into shallow waters, and he wanted to be able to see ahead from way up the best position possible from the top. So when you navigate in these areas where there's coral or shallow waters, he wanted to be able to look down as opposed to looking forward from the lower helm. I should also mention there's wing stations on each side. So up the top you have the spa bath, television of course, another bar area, and that kind of wraps it up for the top. We can come down the port side of the vessel, and the port side of the vessel is primarily designed for crew. You'll find that port side staircase goes from the very top all the way down to the crew cabin, past the galley, etc., all the way down. So there's no reason for the crew to interact or pass through the guests that are sitting on board. It's quite unique that in itself. There's no need to at all step into the boat to step out of the boat. So when you go down towards the back on the port side, you enter the crew cabin. There's a laundry with 4 washer dryers there, Mealy dryers. There's a crew cabin outside. Then you step into the crew quarters, and there's another 3 bunks there with 2 toilets, 2 showers. Again, well suited, a lot of facilities, amenities for the crew. There's another little galley down there for the crew, and there's also a galley seating area for the crew, a table and so on, in the main galley upstairs. Coming out of there, you go further back, and there's a day head at the back of the boat. When you go to the back of the boat again, towards the landing area, where what you might call the beach club, you'll find there's a nitrogen compressor there, there's dive tanks, there's fishing gear down there, there's a toilet down there, there's fridge there's a wine fridge there, there's more storage down there, there's push bikes, electric push bikes down there. There's an immense amount of further storage down there. And then you come back. When that garage door opens up, it opens upwards, and there are rain showers in the top, where I mentioned from the beginning that when you come out of the water, up those transformer steps onto that back area, there are the showers there that you would shower off and not carry wet clothing barefoot into the main part of the boat. So they've got quite a nice wet area down there, a large area. The engines in this vessel are MTUs. They're a very powerful engine. They were capable of doing 24 knots. This vessel will do 24 knots, and I've been on board doing it, so I can put my hand on my heart and say it does it. As far as cruising, then if you drove at say 9.5 knots or 10 knots, you'd have a range of somewhere around the 5,000 nautical miles at that 9.5 knots. So at a fast speed, yes, you're obviously limiting your range, but it's a very comfortable vessel in sea conditions. As I mentioned earlier, it has hydraulic stabilizing fins, and the second owner, and there's only been 2 owners, the original owner and the current owner. The second owner, when he did the refurb in 2017, he put into the 2 SEAKEEPER stabilizer. So this vessel is like, being on a as close as you can be to a train on a track when everything's functioning, with the stabilizers are all engaged. The boat was reaching towards 20 years now. So when the current owner bought it, he bought it in 2015, as I mentioned, and he took delivery of it in late 2017. So in my mind, the boat was refitted in 2017, everything except the drive, the engines, gearboxes, etc. So it really, you can arguably say everything on this boat is no older, apart if we put aside the engines, gearboxes and shafts. If we put that aside, the boat is a 2015 to let's call it 2016, built. So it came up to its 20 years. So Lloyd's, because it's Lloyd's certified, they needed it to be certified on 20 years. So the owner said, okay, then let's get that done. they decided on Pendennis Shipyard in the UK, where the boat went in there in January this year, and it pulled out of the water for the survey. The engines were removed. They had to put holes, effectively. There's soft flooring in the deck there. Straight, not soft as in it's steel, aluminium, I should say. They had to make holes there, and all the way down to the engine room, where they lifted the engines and gearboxes out. They were sent to Holland for a complete rebuild on the engines and gearboxes, brought back and reinstalled. Whilst it was out, the boat is fitted with stabilisers, which are the two Seakeepers, 3500 Seakeepers. It also has hydraulic fins. The tanks were cleaned. The Blackwater tank was opened up, and because of the way it was originally designed, and now they put a hatch into the Blackwater tank so they can access it and do it each 5 years. They can now access it quite easily. And it was relined. All the skin fittings were done, were checked and refitted, replaced as needed. A lot of sundry work was done in terms of little electric motors that they couldn't get to easily before, that were replaced. That work took 8 months. Obviously it was lifted from the water, so it was anti-fouled, prop speed on the propellers and shafts, zincs. A lot of vessels have a heli deck on them, but most of them under the 50-metre size would have a touch and go. This vessel is 42 metres. It has a permanent landing for a 130, an Airbus 130. It can take a 145, and it's certified for a 145, but the owner has a 130. So for it to be able to land and stay there, you need to have the crew operational and certified. So HeliOps is the organisation which certifies the crew to be able to manage the landing of the helicopter. So when the helicopter comes in, of course, it's all coordinated with the various authorities, the aviation, etc., and the captain. And the crew will put on their firefighting equipment, full masks, tanks. There's a automatic fire extinguisher hose upstairs, which will cover that helicopter if it needs to be covered with foam in 1 second. It's all up there and ready to go, which is all part of the certification for the helicopter to be able to land and stay there. So it's quite unique, and I think I would challenge, if anybody would like to write to me or to you to say, I know another boat that's can do that. But keep in mind, this was a 36-metre boat. So back then it was certified also. So now it's a 42-metre and certified for a 145. The main advantage of a helicopter having it on board is convenience, obviously. So if the laws in the Mediterranean now require you to be a couple of miles offshore. So if you're a couple of miles offshore, then the journey ashore in a tender can be a bit tiresome, etc. If you have a helicopter, and bear in mind, not just simply going ashore in a place like Civitavecchia or Cinque Terre. If you're in remote locations, you want to sort of go and visit and land and walk ashore and spend your time ashore and taking in as much as you can with the experience. The helicopter will allow you to do that, as opposed to going ashore on a tender and then hiking up somewhere rather to a remote location, which is far more difficult. I think the helicopter is such a convenience for any owner that it just makes the whole voyage more enjoyable and more manageable. People are time poor, so helicopter, I think, manages that very well for them. everything that's on the boat is top grade. When you walk through the boat, you can see the quality of what has been put into the boat in the refit and what is presently on board. The present owner has a permanent crew of 5 or 6, and when he's on board he'll have a crew of 7 with family and so on. So it has a full-time crew which look after the boat and keep it to its highest possible specification.
If this amazing vessel has caught your eye, what should you do?
They can contact myself or Fraser Yachts, of course, direct, and the message will come through via Fraser Yachts to myself or Eugenio. We'd arrange an inspection, of course, and I mean the owner is quite agreeable to flying people on board, you know, bringing them by the helicopter. It's not an issue. We would just arrange an inspection no matter where they are. They'd have to obviously fly to wherever the yacht may be. Currently, I expect it to be in the south of France for the later part of this year.